Hello everybody, this is the Adafruit CircuitPython Weekly for September 10th, I believe. Yep, 2018. I'm Scott and I work on CircuitPython on behalf of Adafruit along with some other folks in this meeting. This is our CircuitPython Weekly community meeting where everybody's invited to participate. Um, Whether you're talking about projects you've been working on or core CircuitPython code that you've been doing, we want to hear about it. Um, the meeting is structured into four parts. I think it's four. The first part is the state of CircuitPython, which is based on a script that I wrote that pulls kind of statistics about the health of the project as a whole. We'll follow that up with Hug Reports, which is a round robin style uh, chance for everybody to say thank you to other folks for the work they've been doing. After that, we will do a status update section where we talk a little bit about what we've been working on and what we plan on working on in the coming week. Uh, we'll do both of those sections in a round robin. So I will start, and then we'll go down through the list of people in the CircuitPython voice chat. This is where the meeting happens, in the CircuitPython voice chat on our Discord channel. If you do want to catch us live in the future, it's at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern on Mondays. Unless Monday is a US holiday, then we'll usually bump it till Tuesday. To join our Discord channel, you can go to adafru.it/discord. That's our short link for it. That will get you into our Discord, and you can text chat with us all week. And you can voice chat with us during this meeting. So that's how you join. If you do join the voice channel, but you just want to listen in, feel free to let us know that you're lurking. We have a few people today that have already told me that, so that's what that means when I say it. Right, and fourth thing, thank you, Carter, is we have a in the weeds section, which is kind of just an open-ended discussion section where we talk about any potentially longer discussion topics at the end, with the idea that we can get through kind of the high value, dense information at the start and the more detailed stuff at the end. As usual, what we'll do for In the Weeds is if you're in the voice channel and have a topic you want to cover, just make sure and mention it in the text chat before we get to it. That will hopefully minimize the waiting game that I play to see if there's any remaining topics. So I think that's everything. I will be taking time codes into the notes, which allow you to go onto our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Adafruit, look at the previous videos and kind of skim what had happened and where in the video those things were discussed. If you want to jump in and listen to a particular discussion from a previous recording, so I'll be doing that as well. Okay, and with that, let's get going. I'll take a time code, as always, and get into the state of CircuitPython. This is the state of the CircuitPython as of last night when I took these numbers. And what I mean by CircuitPython is not just the core repo, but also the libraries and the newsletter surrounding that get pulled into the statistics that I'll talk about here. So in the last week, we had 19 pull requests merged, which is an awesome pace. We've kind of, I think, regularly been doing around that number, which is great. We had 6 different authors, and I want to shout out D. Farning in particular as somebody kind of new to this list. And then we had 4 reviewers as well. Reviewing is always a great way to jump in if you don't want to make a change yourself. We've got 15 currently open pull requests. The bulk of those are on libraries, so please take a look at that if you're interested in helping. The full list will be in the notes if you want to see what all 15 of those are. Issues-wise, we had 6 closed issues by 6 people, and we had 10 opened by 4 people. I was a bit of those 10, so I'm not too worried about it. I did a bunch of display IO related issues, so that's why we're kind of higher than normal. But in general, we're hovering around the same number of issues. And that number is 148 open issues. And again, if you want to see what all those 148 are, check out the notes. Yep. And then downloads-wise, we've had 1,899 total 3.0.1 downloads. And that's very typically the Circuit Playground Express leading the pack, followed by Trinket M0 and Gemma M0. Feather Huzzah are up there in terms of numbers as well. At the end of the notes, we also have a list of kind of linting checks on how libraries are set up. In these notes, I've actually added some new ones, and I guess I'll just mention that there's this notion of the version of Pylint that we're using. So I have a Pylint version very out of date check, and I also have a Pylint version not fixed. So that finds the repos where we're not using a specific version, or the specific version we're using is pretty old. And then we also have a PyPI check that says like, hey, it's not actually on PyPI yet. So that's in there as well. I went and did some Adabot stuff as I was adding things to the bundle. So if I had to summarize in general where we're at with CircuitPython is we're the three of us, Katney, Dan, and myself, are headed to New York Maker Faire and New York at the end of next week. So we're kind of gearing towards what we want to get done before that. So we'll probably do at least another stable release on the 3.0 line before then, and then we might actually do an NRF52 alpha. We'll see. That's kind of a little bit early because we don't have a lot of hardware that's out there, but we're getting to that point where we could do a 4.0 alpha, which is good. Okay, that's the state of CircuitPython, kind of as I see it. Let's move into Hug Reports. Took a time code. Hug Reports is a chance for everybody to say thank you to other people in the community for the work that they've been doing. It's good for two reasons. One, it's great to just say thank you to people. And then it's also really good to show or to demonstrate to others what you value within our community. So keep those two things in mind of like, I really like the work that so-and-so did, and I'd like to see more people do it, or two reasons to do a Hug Report. So I will start and take a time code again. First and foremost, I kind of saw this before the other thing, but they go hand in hand. I wanted to shout out to Summersoft in particular for doing a bunch of reviews on libraries over the weekend. And that was specifically for Lady Ada, who was adding a bunch of libraries as well. So I really do enjoy checking my email and finding like, oh, this repository has been added and code's been posted, and here's the PR, and oh, somebody already did the review and it's already merged in, and I can just check the email off, and I don't have to worry about it. So that's been great. And so both Lady Ada and Summersoft, thank you so much for the library work that you did over the weekend. And that's it for me in terms of hardware reports. So we will go on to Brennan.
Yeah, I've been out of town, so I guess just general group hug this week.
Group hug is all good. Thank you. Carter is lurking, so we'll jump to Charles. Can you all hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, because I'm getting some weird fuzz that just started, but I don't know where it's coming from. Yeah. Charles, is your mic working? Maybe not. Weird. Yeah, let's go ahead, Dan. We'll go to you.
Yeah, I hear the fuzz, but I don't hear.
Oh, you do hear the fuzz too?
Yes, but very faint, and nobody's circle is green, so
yeah,
I
weird.
don't know where it's coming from. Yeah.
Let me just see if I. No.
That's an animal.
I muted Charles in it. Yeah, nobody's green, which is really strange.
Yeah.
Huh. Discord error, I guess.
Right.
Oh, I muted Brennan and it went away. which is weird.
Is it back?
Oh, that sounds good now.
Huh.
Okay,
All right. We'll see. Yeah.
great. Okay,
All right.
go ahead, Dan. And
Okay. So
sorry to
yeah,
everybody
no
who had
problem.
to deal with that.
So I'll echo that Lamore has been working on a bunch of new libraries, and really big thanks to Scott for doing a massive initial write of display IO for displays on the Halloween and eventually other things. So there was a lot of back and forth about that, but we're making really good progress on that. Or Scott is making really good progress on that. And thanks to Arturo for a lot of NRF reviews. He's sort of come back online after vacation, and also to TAC, who's continuing to work on a lot of NRF 52 things right now. Okay.
Totally. Thanks, Dan and Griffin. All right, Deshipu says group hug. Okay, and Jerry.
Yeah, general group hug, and special thanks to Dan for pushing out the NRF52 dongle port stuff. It's fun to play with.
Nice. And Mike is lurking, and Scott SDW was lurking, but then jumped in and said de-lurk for a moment. So Scott says group hug as well. The time code there. And last but not least, we have Summersoft. Summersoft says at the NRF crew, Dan, Tack, Arturo, and Jerry for continued work on that port. Tannute for Display IO Foundation. Group Huggus Maximus for any I'm missing. Thank you, Summersoft. And Charles, did you want to take a stab at your mic again? I know it was not working. Looks like it's still not working. All right, well, if you get that working, feel free to jump in, or feel free to write text in there, and we'll do it. So that was Hug Reports. If anybody, I see Grover, I just saw you come in. If we get to you during status updates, feel free to Hug Report then. Okay, just lurking. Okay, status updates. This is a very common CircuitPython, or not CircuitPython, software engineering thing, where it's sometimes called the stand-up, and the idea is that you just take 1 or 2 minutes to talk about both what you've been doing and what you plan on doing in the coming week. It's really useful to just know what everybody is doing, but also provide tips and tricks to the people regarding the work that they're doing. So I will start and take a time code first. First and foremost, I got the display IO checked in. As a couple of folks hinted at, I got kind of what I think is the super core to display IO going. I'm gonna do some more work on that this week. I want to make that work with displays that you can like plug in rather than just the built-in board displays. But Lamore Lady Ada asked me to do bitmap kind of pixel streaming off of a file so that we can minimize the memory used for a full color bitmap. So I'm gonna do that first. I'm hoping to get that either later today or tomorrow. I will do that work. I also got the initial board definitions for the Grand Central checked in, which is our kind of metro or mega style board that's coming up with the CMD51. That was interesting because it's just like way more pins than anything else, including some of the PC, the C port pins. So I found a couple issues with the peripherals library and the pin definitions there, so I got those fixed as well. I was working on library stuff and Adabot Love on Friday, primarily to get the image load library into the bundle, which I created along with the display IO stuff, to basically look at an image file and figure out exactly what kind of image it is and kind of load the loading code piecemeal so that I think a lot of Python libraries for image loading are just like, we're going to support all of the different types and we're going to do it all in one file. So you just load all the code. Basically, like if we were to write something where we had infinite memory, And so this library is geared towards not doing that. So it loads a very little chunk of code that says like, is it a PNG or BMP? Although BMPs are only supported right now. And then it kind of imports a little bit more code to be able to read like the header of a BMP, and then imports a little bit more code if it's indexed and stuff like that. Trying to minimize the memory footprint of the actual loading code. So as a general rule of thumb, when it comes to loading images in the new display IO world with image load, you'll basically want all your images in the same format. I don't want it to matter too much what that format is, but if you want to minimize your footprint, you'll want to make sure all your images are in the same format. So yeah, I did some library in Adabot Love, talked a little bit about the Adabot stuff already, checking lint versions, restructuring the PyPI stuff, and yeah, just got distracted by an issue comment coming up. So I will move on and let Brennan let us know what he's doing.
So I've been on the road. I'm in town for a couple of days and just kind of catching up on things a little bit, and then I'm leaving again for a while. Some libraries on PyPI, and I'm working on some documentation for a CircuitPython project I did with LoRa and GPS and some other stuff. That's about it for me this week.
Awesome. Thanks for stopping in, even though you only have a few days before you get going again. Okay. So Carter is lurking and C. Grover is lurking. Charles mentioned a general hug report, and I think is also lurking. So go ahead, Dan.
So there's been a lot of code to review. We spent a little time on that. With Lemore, we've been trying to figure out PyPy and Adafruit Blinka stuff, because there have been a number of issues about libraries not working or things only working on Raspberry Pi, and we're still trying to understand PI packaging completely. So that's kind of ongoing. Mm-hmm. I added the NRF52 dongle to the board list. I added maybe one other board. I cleaned up a lot of the pin definitions for all the boards, added Arduino style pin numbers on the PCA 10056, which is the development kit board from Nordic. I added pin claiming logic for GPIO pins, or for all peripherals, not just GPIO, so that you can't accidentally put the same two peripherals on the same pins.
Right.
I did some cleanup on GPIO pins and I just in terms of the future, there's a long list of things to implement for the NR52, so I'm just going to tackle those things as they come up, or one at a time. And we hope to get a 3.02 release of CircuitPython out this week, which will have fixed the NeoPixels not working on M4 boards, and there are a couple of other outstanding bugs, maybe some UART code, features and bugs, and also Radomir has a PWM bug which we haven't figured out yet, and we're not sure if we can understand it easily. We'll try to fix that in this release also.
Right, you and I took a little bit of a glance at it.
Right, we didn't find anything wrong.
Obvious.
Yeah. So I'll look at it again for an hour or two and see if I can figure something out. Okay.
All right. Sounds good, Dan. All right, Deshipu. Busy at day job. Always good. No progress. Preparing for Maker Faire Zurich this week. Oh, nice. I'd love to hear how that goes. I feel like I forgot to mention that, but like in my evenings, I've been trying to work on my Game Boy stuff, because I would love to bring my Game Boy cartridge to Maker Faire to show off. So I've been doing that in the evenings as well. Last thing I was doing was working on Game Boy Color support as well. Okay, Jerry.
Yeah, it's a lot of unfocused project work this week, but then spent a lot of time playing with the NR52 dongle managed to fry two and got one working really well. So
Oh no.
learned a little bit there. Have a few more on order because they're cheap, but they are easy to break. Um, and then I've been trying to play with this thing that Arturo fixed. There's a problem in the BLE scan that runs on the NRF52s that on the 52840 board, the PCA 1056 board,
Hmm.
only shows the first scan, first item, and he had fixed that a while ago, and then it broke again.
Hmm.
And I've been trying to figure out how to make it work again, and not making much progress, but learning a lot. So I'll keep poking away at that until I give up and ask him for more help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for putting so much work into the NRF stuff, and that goes to everybody as well. I'm excited for NRF to be out and available, and for people to start trying it. I have lots of things I want to do with it. I just haven't personally had time to do it myself, but it's fun to watch other folks really hack on it and do that. All right, Mike is lurking, and Scott is back into lurk mode, but posted a status report saying,
"Hey Scott, I'll talk real quick."
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
As I've spammed about the internet a lot today, my new book from Maker Media on getting started with the Circuit Playground Express is out in electronic bookstores everywhere. And as they get it to the brick and mortar ones, it does have a number of chapters on CircuitPython, as well as make code and how to set up Arduino environment, although I don't talk much about actually using it a lot in Arduino because that would probably be a whole nother book. But if all you here inside the chat probably have the background, but some of our listeners here might be looking for a book to introduce CircuitPython and microcontrollers to a younger group of people, or somebody who would like to get into microcontrollers and just would like to have something hard and readable, dead tree to do. So they might want to check out this book. So I'm just putting in a plug for that. I'll be at Maker Faire along with Scott and the CircuitPython crew. I'm giving a talk, and the info will be in the newsletter, and it should be in the guide for Maker Faire 2018. So it'll be Sunday from 12 to 12:30 in Zone 3. If anybody'd like to stop by, I'd be glad to chat CircuitPython or Circuit Playground Express or whatever, and sign a book if they'd like.
Cool. Sounds like a good deal.
Hey, the book may cost a little bit, but talking to me and my signature, totally free. Actually, I really like meeting people and hearing about. That's part of this community. It's so dynamic. It's really fun to interact with folks that might not normally get together. And Maker Faire is one of those rare yearly events where we do have people getting together besides PyCon.
Right, totally. And I will plug also that on our Discord channel, which you go to the URL adafru.it/discord. We do have an events category of channels, and that includes a World Maker Faire channel specifically. So if you are going to World Maker Faire and want to make sure and meet up with Mike or any of us, hop in there and let us know. That's where our planning will be. So Adafruit never does anything really official in terms of meetups or booths or anything, but we do the last couple years, at least the last year, we did kind of an unofficial meetup at the DigiKey booth. So planning on doing that again. So if you want to find out more details about that, hop in our Discord, check out the World Maker Faire channel, and also let us know that you're going so we can actually add you to a group where you'll get pinged when we post stuff about it as well. So
definitely, that's what we'll be checking.
Yeah, pro tip. All right, thanks, Mike. Looking forward to meeting you in person too. We've never actually met.
Well, you're on that left coast. Actually, I lived out there until the government snagged me for a 30-year stint on the right coast and abroad. But yes, I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of people too, including you and Katney and Dan.
Totally. It's going to be a blast. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. See you.
Let's see. Time code. So Scott is next on the list, and already put in a brief when they uncloaked himself briefly to talk about what they're working on. Says, I'm part of the microbit beta testing, and I'm testing a new firmware and make code in MicroPython editors that implement WebUSB to allow direct flashing to the microbit. Super interesting. That's something that's come up a lot, so I'll be curious to hear how that goes. And lastly, Summersoft. Usually just types in, copies and pastes it over. Says for frequency in the ultra low power 32K as a DPLL source in work for crystalless boards, have to establish a G clock since it can't be directly sourced from the external oscillator. Then I should be able to assess jitter cause as mentioned last week. Still discussing TC register usage / DMA with Tan Newt. I'm going to update the VEML 6070 library to match the new VEML 6075 library in usage and structure. Awesome. And again, thank you so much for all your reviews on there, on the libraries. It's much, much appreciated. It does lighten the load for both me and Dan to be, and Katney to just see back and forth on reviews and then merges, and it's great. So if anybody's looking to participate in open source software, that's a great way to start, and we're happy to help. So reach out if you're interested in that. Okay, that's it for status updates. Thank you, everybody. We'll now do In the Weeds. Let me just take a time code so that if people want to hear the explanation, they can. In the Weeds is a kind of broader, longer talk about kind of anything that we want to talk about section. That's why we call it In the Weeds. It's also called just like discussion. If you have a topic you want to cover, I saw Jerry's already, so we'll do that first. But if any other folks have topics, please type them into the text chat. We'll add them to the note stock as a list of things that we'll cover before we finish up. And then once we're out of discussion topics for In the Weeds, we will wrap up and call it a week. So let's kick it off with Jerry.
All right, so I've been playing around with this NRF dongle a little bit and realized, you know, in the pin definitions, it doesn't specify what to use for I2C or SPI. So I thought I'd, you know, before I dive in, I thought I'd do a little research and make sure which ones were valid. And so it raised more questions than answers for me. So I thought I'd throw it out here as I started looking at the way they're defined on other boards. And so Dan, maybe you can just straighten me out and tell me that I'm just looking in the wrong places for the information. But it seems to be that there's some real conflicts between what the data sheet says about at least some of the parts and the way some of the pins are defined.
So yeah, so the data sheet mentions a number of pins that it says you should only use them for low frequency use only. And the reason for that is not because they're not capable of high frequency use, but because they might generate RF noise that might interfere with like the Bluetooth radio or something. So it's not really clear to us how important that is, but in the future designs, we're gonna, like Limor is looking at that kind of the next revs of various boards, and will prefer not using those pins in general for like the default I2C or SPI pins or something like that.
Okay, and the way they are now, they are being used, correct?
Yeah, so she noticed, so basically this was brought up a few weeks ago, and so in the next spin of the board, she might try to avoid those. So don't take, which boards are you talking about?
Well, actually, what I was looking at was in order to, you know, the way I've been using on the PCA 1056 development kit board. I think SPI is I2C is on 20P0, 26, and 27, and those are okay. but the SPI is on. I had it on 1011 P1, 10, 11, and 12, but actually I looked in the pins.c file there. It's on 12, 13, or 13, 14, and 15, all of which are supposed to be low frequency only. Now I've had no problems with SPI on that board, but so that got me to thinking that hey, I missed it when they actually got defined on there, but so then I was looking at what to use on the dongle, and realized that none of those pins are actually brought out to the header anyway. So I had to find new ones, and then started reading and realized, wait a minute, I probably should be careful about which ones I pick. But then I went and looked at the Feather 5284 Express board, even though it isn't out yet, and saw that it uses I2C on, I think, on 2 of the P1s that are low frequency only. So I thought that might be a concern. That's why I wanted to raise it now, in case that was a concern.
So I think yeah, Limor is aware of that for the Feather 52840, and may try to move them around.
Okay.
Sometimes there's a routing issue.
Sure.
What's on the PCA 10056 is just the SPI pins are the ones that go to the SPI, the Arduino style SPI header. So it was Nordic that put the low frequency pins there.
Okay.
So it's sort of, that's on their head. And I don't think, I think what's probably going to happen is that my guess is that it's not going to make the Bluetooth radio not work. It just might make it less sensitive or something like that. There might be more noise, for long distance Bluetooth or something. So probably what's in the data sheet is like really conservative, and it's not necessarily the case that it won't work or anything like that. We just would try to avoid those if we can.
Okay, well, that was why I raised it now, because I was thinking back to all the discussions that have come up about the SAMD 51 and its pins. There was a big discussion about that a few weeks ago. Thought maybe
right. That was right. That would have to do with in that case, there are some certain pins on the SAMD that have higher drive capability,
right?
Which is better for I2C, high speed I2C, and we didn't really sort of notice that, and we'll try to make do that in the future, but we're not going to redo the existing boards because it would mess up everything.
Is it correct that as opposed to on the SAMD, you have all these CIRCOMs, and there's certain restrictions as to which pins can do what? It doesn't appear that there's any restrictions as to which GPIOs can be used on the NRF52. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're either completely special cased,
right,
or there's a crossbar and they can go anywhere.
Okay.
So on the dongle, I haven't defined any default SPI or I2C because there's kind of no reason to. They're not labeled that way or anything, so it's up to you to choose which ones you want to use. And on the PCA 10056, the development kit board, it simulates there are headers on it that make it look like an Arduino,
right? And
so the definitions that I chose there are the same as what would if you were plugging in an Arduino Shield or something. I mean, if it had Arduino labels like the SCL and SDAs or whatever, they didn't label that on the board, but they're in the same position.
Yeah, that one on the back, it tells you which ones to use.
Yeah, but it's clear that there are kind of too many pins that are low frequency only. So it doesn't leave as many as you might want.
Right. Okay, that helps a lot. I just and it was really confusing too, because at one point I found there's the thing talks about the ball grid array chip, and that's what the data sheet talks about, and that's what's on the dongle. But on the PCA 10056, the development kit, that's actually a flat pack board, and so I thought, geez, is it maybe a different pin chip, different layout? But I don't think so. I think it's just they're all talking about the same pins.
I'm sure it's not. I mean, so I don't know whether the low frequency issue is because of on-chip interference or whether it has to do with certain packages or both to some extent. yeah, it's not really that well.
And just a
Right.
heads up, I think the way I know the way I fried two boards. One is just in doing a horrible job of trying to solder on a header, the SWD header. I think I accidentally bridged there's um, a jumper SB1 and SB2. SB2 is normally jumper, and SB1 is open, and they're for determining how you power the board. I got some solder on SB1, and it says in the sheet, don't ever have both of them bridged at the same time, and all it may damage is just the chip. So I think that's true.
Oops.
The second one, the only thing I can think of that I did that killed it was I maybe briefly shorted VDD to ground, which is probably a really bad thing to do in general, but it's really easy to do on those boards, because the way the castellated pads are very close to each other. So I don't for sure know that that's what killed it, but something did, and so if people are working with them, just be careful.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the internal voltage regulator, so I could
Yeah,
imagine. Yeah.
it puts out a half a volt now
Oh,
on the
okay.
so something fried. So I might try. I could try if I get really anxious. I can try and power it externally and see if I can get it working. But it's simple enough to just get some more.
Yeah, and one other thing I might note is that on the DK board, on the PCA 1056 board, the regulator on board is a 3 volt, not a 3.3 volt regulator. So the GPIO pins are never going to get above 3 volts, which is kind of a nuisance. So if you're trying to drive NeoPixels at 5 volts or something, it's going to not work very well. And I have no idea why they chose 3 volts as opposed to 3.3. The button battery on the back is 3 volts, and maybe that was the reason, but I don't really know. So it's not. So it means it's not really like a great substitute electrically for a feather or something like that if you're testing certain things.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, nobody else commented on extra in the weeds discussion questions, so I think we'll just wrap up. I'll take a time code because it's always kind of nice to know. This has been the Adafruit CircuitPython Weekly for September 10th, 2018. It happens every week on Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern on our Discord channel, which you should join even if you can't make that time. To join, you go to the URL adafru.it/discord. That will get you an invite into our Adafruit server. It's a nice, friendly place to talk about projects and get questions answered and talk CircuitPython. We have a code of conduct, and we make sure that people stick to it. So it's a nice, friendly place. I'd love to have more people in there. If you want to get all the latest Python news, you can subscribe to the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter. It goes out every Tuesday morning, unless we screw some of the scheduling up, and then it's Wednesday. Covers stuff on CircuitPython, but also CPython, which is desktop Python, and MicroPython as well as it comes up. So please subscribe to that. You go to adafruitdaily.com. We put links to the latest recordings of the CircuitPython weekly meeting in there as well. Just another useful thing that happens in there. Yeah, and thank you to everybody. We should be on schedule to do Monday next week. The week after that might be a little wonky because we'll be in New York, but I also think that either next week or the week after is our 1-year anniversary on doing these recorded CircuitPython Weekly, so we should do a little bit of a celebration for that as well. Maybe we'll do a giveaway. That would be cool too. Anyway, thank you everybody, and check in next week or sooner on our Discord. Have a great week.